Do you want to know the secret to getting a Band 7 or higher on your next academic Task 1 writing? Well, stick around, I'll show you how. The number one issue I saw as an examiner is that people have the vocabulary and grammar necessary to get a Band 6 or higher, but they don't know how to answer the academic Task 1. In this video, I'll go through step by step the questions you should ask before you start writing. This video will save you time, which will give you more time to do the Task 2 writing, which is much more important. So by having a good beginning, you'll be able to save your time, make sure that you get everything organized, and then when you have to write it, it'll come out very quickly. So this video will save you so much time when you have to do the real IELTS test later. And a big thank you to my friends at IELTS-Blog for providing this prompt. That's wonderful. If you want to know more about them, check the link below. Now, always the most important question you need to ask yourself before you start writing is, what are you comparing? And you can see from the prompt that it's percentages of New Zealand smokers in the age group 18 to 25. So that's what you're comparing, the percentage, and then from 2014 to 2018. Now, what are you comparing? Well, you're comparing the tobacco product, okay? So that's what you're comparing. That's really important. And you're also comparing year by year, 2014, 2015, all the way up to 2018. So that's the most important thing to think about before you get started. Next, you've got how are you comparing? This is also extremely important, and you can see on the left that it's percent. The reason this is so important is this will allow you to pick which vocabulary you're going to use. Much like a pie chart that talks about percentage, that's what we're using with this one. So when you have percent, you can use words like proportion, okay? You can use synonyms like that, and you can check the synonyms that you have rather than just saying percent all the time. Next, when are you comparing? Also very, very important for your grammar. You can see that it's 2014 to 2018. Now this will allow you to pick which grammar you're going to use. So you can use a variety of, passive, past expressions, and if you can't use them well, then you can use other past forms. But again, you need to use a variety. You have to make sure they're in the past. So that's also really important. Next, you've got which group was the largest overall. This is a normal thing to check in any academic Task 1. Well, the largest group, not by a lot, but it was cigarettes. And this may or may not be important, but again, it's good to point that out on your test before you start writing. Next, you've got overall trend from year to year, and I've drawn a crude line for each. So we can see with e-cigarettes, it has a huge jump, right? And then with regular cigarettes, it declines. And then with cigars, it kind of fluctuates. It has a high year. So again, this will really help you when you're going to write about it later. Next, do you have any drastic changes? So I've just put little arrows from year to year. You can see that with e-cigarettes from 2016 to 2017, there's a large jump. Maybe you want to circle it or put a star, but again, make sure you mark something on your paper. And then we go over to cigars, and there was a big jump in 2017 and then a big decline back in 2018. So again, all of this will help you get ready before you write. And it takes, maybe 5 minutes, but this 5 minutes will save you 5 minutes or much more later because you'll have a very solid plan. Next, we move on to reword the prompt. As I mentioned in other videos, you don't have to reword it, but if you don't, then the words you use and the grammar, they don't count towards your word count, and they don't count towards your overall proficiency because you're just copying the prompt. Don't spend too much time doing this. What I recommend now is try to reword it yourself, okay? And then put your reworded prompts in the comments section below. So maybe pause the video now and try to write your own and then check mine. And here's mine. The bar chart indicates the method by which people aged 18 to 25 smoked in New Zealand from 2014 to 2018. And you can see that I've changed quite a bit. Okay, I've changed, easiest way is, shows to indicates. I've reworded, how, the method by which, so I've made it a little bit more academic sounding. You don't have to change it this much. I just wanted to do something a little bit different compared to my other videos, just so you could see other ways that you could reword the prompt. Now, for the most important thing, an overview, okay? Tips for a good overview. Like, don't use figures or details. Don't put any percentages, don't put any numbers. That's really, really important. Organize the main trends. This will help you so much later. And keep it short. You should not be writing 2 sentences. You should be writing maybe multiple clauses in one longer sentence. But again, you don't want to be going into great detail. And I always recommend put it at the beginning. You can put it at the end, but it is much clearer to the examiner if you put it at the beginning, and much more, I say, popular and much more straightforward to read. So why don't you pause the video here and try to write an overview. And again, put it in the comments section. I love to read them. So take a minute and do that right now. And here's mine. For most years, cigarettes were the most popular source of tobacco, but e-cigarettes had a massive surge in popularity, and cigars were the least favored, with some fluctuations year to year. So you can see, I have used 3 different clauses, and I kept it short, and I didn't use any numbers. And all of those things are true of what's going on in this bar chart. Now, all you have to do is let your overview guide you. So basically, you've got, for most years, cigarettes were the most popular source of tobacco. So in my paragraph 2, I'm just going to focus on that. From 2014 to 2016, cigarettes were the most popular, slightly decreasing from 17%, 15%, and then 13%. Then there was a large drop in 2017 too, and again, you just put in the numbers, which coincides with the sudden increase in the proportion of people who used e-cigarettes. Now you can write more, put it in the comments section below. I like to read them. And you just put in the information. That's all you have to do. But because it started so clearly, then it's just about using synonyms and good grammar to just report the information. For the next one, well, but e-cigarettes had a massive surge in popularity. Well, let's talk about that. From 2014 to 2016, e-cigarettes were not very popular, only reaching 5% in 2016. However, there was a drastic uptick in usage too. And again, just put in the information. And again, put your paragraph in the comments below. It's great to read them. Next, we have paragraph 3. So cigars were the least favored, with some fluctuations year to year. Well, cigars were the least popular of the 3, reaching a peak of 11% in 2017. However, the other years, and again, just talk about them. You don't have to talk about them in each year by year. You can summarize them. But again, I'll leave that to you, and I would love to read your paragraphs in the comments below. So put them down there. Next, and as always, I have important reminders. You don't want me to give you a full essay. I know as an examiner when people just try to memorize essays and then put different information on top. The problem is the years change, the times change, the topics change, and basically it's always changing. So you have to, not every IELTS writing task is the same. There is kind of a general pattern, and you have to use the vocabulary and grammar you have. And again, you can share them down below, and you can see that there's different levels people have, but the most important thing is how you write it. Use a range of past grammar forms accurately. Again, this one's in the past, so you've got to use a good range. Past perfect is good. Also using passive voice is very good. This gives you a higher grammar score. when you use it accurately. Use a range of comparative expressions. This is almost for every single academic task one. You should have synonyms for but, however, on the other hand, in contrast, even though, although, all these expressions. You should try to not use the same expression twice. That would be a really good tip for getting a higher score on your next test. Next, have a range of synonyms accurately. Well, instead of increase, goes up, you saw that I used uptick. Again, there's so many websites out there that give you, synonyms for things like percentage. Okay, so you don't want to use the same word over and over again. This negatively affects your lexical score. So you want to use some synonyms. Check those out. Use the ones that are comfortable for you. Next, start with the major areas first. Okay, here we started with cigarettes, right? It wouldn't be bad to start with e-cigarettes at all. It's just whatever you think the major area is. It's a good plan to go in knowing that you're going to talk about the major area first. And don't go off topic. You don't want to talk about smoking being bad, or maybe cigarettes, e-cigarette companies started advertising more. You don't want to start speculating. Your job is to just report. Now, the one thing that you might want to speculate in this one compared to others is 2017. We can see that cigarettes went down while e-cigarettes went up. So you could maybe, and I wouldn't recommend it, but you could guess that cigarette smokers switched to e-cigarettes. Okay, so that wouldn't be bad at all. Again, I just always recommend stick to the information and don't try to draw your own conclusions. And speaking of conclusions, you don't need one. I've seen so many websites out there and so-called experts say that you need a conclusion. You absolutely do not. If you have a good overview, a good introduction, there's no need for a conclusion, and you've explained everything in your body paragraphs, just stop, move on to task 2. I promise it won't affect your score at all, because as an examiner, I've seen many times where people just reword the introduction and the conclusion. For me, this adds no benefit as an examiner because you're just repeating what you've already said. Instead, make your body paragraphs better, move on to task 2, and get a higher score. Please check out the playlist for speaking part 2 and 3. And there I use real questions, I give you real advice, and I do mock tests. It's really helpful. And if you want to see all my videos, check out the links below. And I wish you the best of luck on your next IELTS test.